Welcome back from the weekend as we are here with our normal shenanigans on the Monday. This is the PHLY Sixers podcast alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens with you. Bree is in the house producing as always. All of you in the chat, we appreciate it. Hope you had a great weekend as we get back to it. Basketball back this week, but it's not until Thursday, man. It's been
I am really dreading the later part of the summer when I have to pretend that I like baseball for a couple months when there's no other sport in town. Well, I guess the Union, but the Union are kind of right now. So.
Best baseball team in 20 years. He's like,
That's
probably
what happens when they're too good.
93, right?
Yeah, since 93. Yeah, so that's what happens
baseball. It's not a reflection of their quality. It's a reflection of the quality of the sport that they play.
Even though they've changed some of the rules and it's speed up the game is no longer.
It's still baseball.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I like it. So
I'm not hating on anybody who likes it and is having fun that this Phillies run. Anyway, we're losing the plot.
That's sort of the way I get with soccer too. It's like I
don't begrudge you for not liking soccer.
Not at all.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everything. Is Zach LaVine for everybody?
No.
As we get ready to discuss.
Thank you for coming today, folks. We'll see you Tuesday.
Here once again, but this time because it seems like the price may have gone down trying to acquire Zach LaVine. And if that's the case, if you are a detractor of Zach LaVine, and maybe another part to it, which we'll get into, with that change of stance on the Philadelphia 76ers, Daryl Morey in the front office may be targeting Zach LaVine instead of some of the other things that you would have to do, like paying Paul George a max contract, trading for Jimmy Butler, having to give up possibly a number of first-round picks, plus extending his contract. Brandon Ingram, you don't like that option. You don't like some of these other options. If Zach LaVine, which we're about to get to.
We've learned nobody likes any of the options.
Exactly. So with this change of mind, though, if you don't have to pay as much for he's an all-star player, plus some other compensation with it. So before we get to Derek's thoughts on that, Kyle, you saw this, and KC Johnson, a longtime Bulls reporter in Chicago, had some info possibly on Zach LaVine.
Shout out to KC Johnson, always plugged in Chicago, now at NBC Sports over there. Had a mailbag. I think it was on Friday. I could check the date, but that would take some work I'm not willing to do right now. In any case, he wrote recently about Zach LaVine and the price tag it might take to get him. Here's what KC Johnson had to say. Quote, I do get the sense they, as in the Bulls, are open to more possibilities than before. More to the point, I've reported before what their asking price was, all-star level talent, first-round picks, or both, and my sense is that it has dropped significantly. So Derek, rightfully before the show, as we're talking through this, made the point that, well, what does significantly actually mean when the starting point is that high, right? Does it mean, hey, we'll just take picks? Does it mean they'll just take a high-level player, one-for-one swap, no add-ons, no nothing? I think in both those cases, if you're asking for multiple picks, if you're asking for a high-level guy just to get LaVine, I think that's a hard no.
I'm not giving you a high-level guy or multiple
I'm not
picks.
giving you a high-level, basically anything.
Well, first of all, they don't have high-level guys to trade. That's sort of one of the problems of this
offseason. I'm
talking
about picks, too. I wouldn't give – if I thought I had a really valuable pick, I'm not willing to give it up for Zach LaVine at this point because there are several factors that go into that. One, don't love the contract. He's making, $43 million this upcoming season, almost exactly 46 the season after that. And then he's got a player option 3 years down the road for a shade under $49 million. Those are big, big numbers for a younger player than the guys we're talking about, right? Paul George, Jimmy Butler, the guys on the not the free agent market. Free agent market in Paul George's case, trade market in Jimmy Butler's. I don't think he's as good as them. I think he's got his own health problems. So it's not like normally you'd say, hey, we're getting the younger guy. He's less of a health risk. Well, no, Zach LaVine has had constant issues. He's had major knee injuries. He's had nagging knee injuries. He's had nagging lower body injuries. The rest of a good chunk of his season this year was wiped out due to injury.
Again.
So you can't trust him as he's not someone you're bringing in at 29 years old and saying, well, you're confident he's going to play 70 plus games. And that gives you a solid Tyrese Maxey, Zach LaVine backcourt that When Joel Embiid is out, they're more than likely going to be able to hold down the fort for you. Where I do start to get interested is if Paul George stays in LA, Jimmy Butler and the Heat end up coming to some kind of understanding, and the options are thinning. And you can either, if you want to push chips in now or make a big move now, the choices are between you have to move real stuff to get Brandon Ingram, or they'll just give you Zach LaVine, and maybe you give up some extra on top of that to get Caruso along with him. That's when I think it becomes intriguing, because I think we've talked about Caruso quite a bit on this show. He brings a lot of value on his own. And somebody in the chat actually compared it to like a better version of taking Ben to get Mikal Bridges. Because Zach LaVine has flaws, but Zach LaVine I still think has utility and purpose as an NBA player, where I can't say that about Ben Simmons anymore. So if you can get Caruso and it's like, all right, Zach LaVine comes with, and you get two guys who are helpful contributors, even if one is very flawed and very expensive, that's when it gets into consideration for me. But I don't think Chicago is there yet. The problem.
And there's also two big differences there. One is that Ben Simmons is an expiring contract. Zach LaVine has 2 additional years on top of that. And the other is Mikal Bridges is better than Alex Caruso.
Yes.
So like that equation is completely different. Look, in terms of priorities, because Zach LaVine's next salary is only $6 million less than like Paul George would be. Obviously, I would rather go out there and give up, a max to Paul George and then 2 or 3 first-round picks, even if that's a drastic overpay for Caruso, rather than be tied.
And I think that might be what it takes
in
to
the separate
him.
deal, you mean?
Yeah. Rather than be tied to Zach LaVine's contract. Kyle brought up the injury concerns. There's that. There's the offensive fit concerns, although I think from a talent perspective, LaVine could fit if he is willing to slot into that role. And then there's the defensive concerns where, quite frankly, he just doesn't look like he cares all that much off ball the majority of the time. You add all of that in, and it's just a combination with the salary that I don't like. And he is talented. He could certainly, like his off ball catch and shoot numbers weren't good this past year, but I think he's got that skill set in him for sure.
And he only
He's
played
just
like 25 games,
yeah.
so that's.
I think he's got that skill set in there. I think he can move a little bit off ball. Obviously, he can create a little bit with the ball in his hands. He's got a lot of the offensive skill sets you would want, but the defense is really bad. The availability is bad. The buy-in, especially defensively, but including into his role on offense, is enough of a question mark where he would be nowhere near the top of my list. So the question becomes, if you get down to like option D or E or F, is he in that mix? I think that's where I get to the point where I'd rather go the role player route, depending on obviously the details there, or I'd rather go the balloon payment route and just wait for the next star, which I know Kyle does not like, but I would rather do that. Than this is almost the exact scenario where we were debating before. I would rather go that route than tie myself to a player and a contract that I don't want, just because you feel like you have to make a move now. I do have interest in Caruso, but I would rather overpay for Caruso on his own than I would, like I said, be tied to LaVine.
All right, so looking at it, and all right, so we talked a lot last week about the buy-in guys maybe buying low, as you said, buying low with the reporting there, and buying low on a guy that it has gotten to this point where they just want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So they want to get rid of him. With all the stuff that we just laid out there, why could that not work? If he comes in here and he has the idea that he is going to be the second best player in front of Tyrese Maxey, he can forget it. That's just not happening. Now, the skill set, the all-star, all of that, guess what? What does he have, 1? So he has the same amount as...
2, I believe.
He has 2? So he does have 2. Well, he's only Tyrese Maxey's only 1 away from that, and we feel like he's on the trajectory of doing that. He's going to have to accept that. And then when we're talking about getting out of a toxic situation, which Chicago seemingly has been, them thinking they're much better than they actually are, for them to believe that they're going to go in once again this season and think that they're actually going to go in all in right now to win, they're nuts. And that's why they are in the position that they're currently in. But for him to get out of that situation, coming to a spot like this where it's a contending team once again, playing with Embiid and Maxey, oftentimes I feel like maybe I'm giving these guys a little bit too much credit of getting out of a bad situation and jumping into a solid one where you change your tune. He has never been a playoff player. He has never, from Minnesota to Chicago, they've been in the playoffs maybe once or twice, a play-in team, and that's all they have been.
Yeah.
You get out of that and you come into this spot. Will he buy into that with the 2 years left, hoping that with the option of him getting one more big contract left in that basketball body that he has, would he accept the role that he has to accept, maybe make another all-star team as that third option, playing in a situation where he's playing with these two other guys. That is not what he's had in Chicago. So you just look at that, and then you point into the Caruso piece of it and him being added into it. That's the icing on the cake of if you are able to get both of them. And that's what we're asking everybody. Of course, in the chat, we see some of the stuff you're throwing in there, especially the fun super chats, which we'll get to, that the whole piece of it, does it change because you do get that Caruso piece? Because look, when you're talking about paying Paul George, the Sixers want to win. And you pay Paul George, they give him that. They're clearly trying to win. If they do the other stuff. But those things could fall apart. And then you might have to act fast if those things don't happen, unless you go the route that Derek just laid out of, no, now I'm going role player. I'm just so out on Zach LaVine that I am going role player now, and I'm not giving him that kind of money. If it got to that point where we got to that F and E, F, G, H, and we get to that part of
we're
the
going to sing the
conversation,
alphabet today?
we can get there because that's where it seems like that's how far down he is. We have to sing to the alphabet, and then you say, stop. Okay, now I'll accept it. Then that's where it is. It's going to be a hard sell, I think, on a lot of Sixer fans. But there are a decent amount of Sixer fans who do like the player and just simply say, get the player in the situation and it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, the skill set is there. So you understand why people would like the player.
Yeah.
It's just like we've talked a lot about how it is difficult or more difficult now to build a third star sort of team because of the second apron, because of the more punitive repeater taxes, all that stuff. You do it for players who you think are worth it or who fit. When it's somebody who has so many question marks, it's just like you're going to tell me this guy's going to be paid $43 to $48 million and he's going to compromise your depth because you won't be able to sign anyone and still stay under the second apron. Those are the kind of contracts, like for me to give out a big contract, you either have to have a track record that gives me confidence, or you have to be able to slot into a role later on in your career that I think even if you're not being worth your salary, I can still at least trust that you will fill that role. And I'm just not sure when you mix in LaVine's warts along with his injury concerns, that's just the contract I would stay away from.
Okay, so I will do a slight bit of LaVine defending here. We're all mostly in agreement. I would say, I guess I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. On the one hand, I agree with Devon on the risk of trying to do the change of scenery thing with LaVine is that contract, right? Like, Dallas made a bet on guys in bad situations that never won in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And those were calculated risks, right? But those guys are not making $45+ million a year. They're not anchoring your salary structure for the foreseeable future. That's PJ Washington on a $15-ish million deal. It's somewhat of a risk, but it's not a massive one. And if it doesn't work out, he's movable for, whether it's you can dump him somewhere for minimal picks, whether you just swap him out for another guy on a similar contract. Like, that's easy enough to pull off. With Zach LaVine, if he doesn't work, you're in trouble. Yeah. Like, it's going to take significant capital to get off of him, or you have to find an equally as unappealing star at that moment or overpaid role player, whatever it might be, to move the deal and try to rearrange the chairs again. What I would say is on the defensive side of things, if you're trying to make the change of scenery case, I know it's been a long time since this happened, but when Lonzo Ball was healthy and they had sort of the core of that team as the front office there envisioned it, they were an elite defensive team. Now, it was over, like half a season, 2/3 of a season. Mm-hmm. But LaVine was part of it. At the very least, even if you were to sit here and say, well, he wasn't the focal point. He wasn't the guy driving that. That's Lonzo. That's Caruso. He's still part of a rotation where the top 5 guys also included DeRozan, historically has been derided as a defender. Nick Vucevic, historically has not been a very good defender. So at the very least, LaVine had to have been playing passable defense. I think there were stretches of that where he played good defense. And as the team was winning, he was too. I think the trouble with trying to rely on that sample is it's such a small part of his career, but also because if he comes here and you are trying to bring him on as a distressed asset, he once again is a foundational piece of your team by virtue of that salary. So if he does not revert to that version of Zach LaVine, which we've seen but hasn't been sustainable over his career, that's a big problem. Again, like if Zach LaVine was making $15 to $20 million, sure, I'll take a gamble. I think that's a player with the offensive talent, the versatility on offense, and the momentary production on defense that I would say I'll sign up for that rehab. Like at this point, give me the talent bets. You're not going to get a better value than that. I just think more than likely for 43, 44, 45 and up $1 million moving forward, there are going to be better bets than Zach LaVine is basically what it comes down to.
No, I am not going to tell you that there's no chance Zach LaVine could work out here.
Yeah.
I'm not confident enough in that to say that. I will say it's not a high enough chance that I would lock myself into that contract, like I said, in this era where bad contracts and bad high dollar contracts can limit you so much. Let's just say between him and Ingram, I would go Ingram ahead of LaVine.
I think so too.
So would I. Yep, so would I. All right, but I do have a question off of that. We'll do that because if Zach LaVine did come here and he wanted to sit on the set here with us, you can get a nice beverage from Kyle Neubeck here.
Listen. Well, yeah, the beverage king of...
That's right.
Well, he'd be coming from... Who is it? Abe Froman, the sausage king of Chicago, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I'm the beverage king of PHLY.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, as always, everybody, about Olipop, a new kind of soda with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of fiber per can. Olipop is available online and in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including the most recent launch at all Wawa stores. You can scoop a classic root beer or a strawberry vanilla at a Wawa near you. Guess what I brought with me to the beach this weekend, Devon?
What's that?
Some ice cold Olipops. I did not have the cream soda that you see on the set with me here today.
Did you have enough for everyone else when you went to the beach?
I did. I had brought a sampling.
Okay.
So, we had some of the tropical punch sitting in my fridge at home. I brought some grape, some strawberry vanilla, and my friends were very impressed, even people who are big traditional soda drinkers. I think I might have converted a couple of them. So the work I've been putting in on the show is also happening off the show. And guys, if you want to get in on Olipop, just know it's lower in sugar than conventional sodas with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar from natural sources. No added sugar, but you still get that great taste. You get plenty of variety in the flavor. So I have a cream soda alongside me here today, but also vintage cola, classic root beer, orange squeeze, classic grape, strawberry vanilla, cherry cola. I know root beer and grape, I think, are big favorites on the PHLY set. We had
fans.
The Good Luck Ginger Ale Devon was drinking during the playoffs. Some people are in on the lemon lime.
Got the fridge right here.
We got all kinds of... I'm hoping
Kyle's
for
wearing the lemon lime shirt.
Hey, it's one thing to take it from the audience. It's another thing to hear your grief over there. The point is, there's something for everybody.
There's a reason I wear gray or a dark heather charcoal every day.
Yeah, because you're boring numbers man over there. If you want to get in on the Olipop action, just use the code PHLY20 for 20% off of your next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscriptions. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com and on Amazon, and it's available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff.
All right, and when you drink that, you have it sitting in the car waiting for you after you step out of the
Don't let
Bet
it get
Parks.
hot in that car in the summertime, though. You got to drink it ice cold.
No, but when you leave Bet Parks Casino, you can have a cup of ice, and if it does get a little warm by sitting in the car, you can pour that into your cup of ice because Bet Parks Casino is one of the best places in the area that I've always enjoyed going to. And the Femmes of Rock right now playing classic rock on violins, right? Cool act. And they headline at Parks Casino this Friday night. Sebastian Bach, former lead singer of Skid Row, brings his solo tour.
Oh, that's Sebastian Bach. I was like, what?
On Saturday night.
They brought him back from the dead. Oh, my goodness.
That one, August 23rd. This year, of course, Southern Rock of the Marshall Tucker Band, September 7th, 2024. Australian Pink Floyd. Did you know that? How about that? Kyle likes it. Plus, from the TV show Jersey Shore and the podcast, the It's Happening podcast, live is Snooki and Joey coming to Parks Casino on June 28th. Any thoughts? Any thoughts? You'll be there. I know those are the thoughts. Also, comedian Michael Blaustein on October 25th. All at Parks Casino, the #1 casino experience in the state of Pennsylvania. I've been there. I saw Dion Cole last summer at the Parks Casino. It was the best. It was fantastic. He's funny as hell, and you have to go check out the it was funny because, of course, he's funny, but the atmosphere is great because it's Parks Casino. This is how you win. They have it all. And it's my casino of choice of when I do decide, you know what, it's the summertime And when I go in there in the summertime, like I did on that night to see a Deion Cole, it's packed in there. But the air conditioning is great. It's a great spot to be in. Parks Casino has 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, state-of-the-art sports book with a 150-foot video wall, plus the ultra-cool lounge, the X Lounge. And having been there multiple times, again, for different reasons, the sports book is huge. The lines get long when people want to go in there and place their bets. The outer garden there where you want to watch television out there. All of the restaurants that are in the place, amazing. The Parks Grill Steakhouse, superb. Liberty Bell, Gastropub, and Beer Garden. So visit parkscasino.com. Parks Casino, this is how you win. Must be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right.
Whole lot of acts in that. I'm never going to be able to see real Pink Floyd, so Australian Pink Floyd, I might have to take them up on that since David Gilmour and Roger Waters have been in a Cold War for like 4 decades.
Well, we might know a guy that knows a guy, the nosy guy, to get you in there to see that.
And then we got the Sebastian Bach threw me for a real loop. Actually, I don't remember if I talked to you guys about this. No. Have you ever seen, this is my brain's going in composer mode right now. Have you guys ever seen Amadeus, the movie that won Best Picture way back in the day?
Yeah.
An absolute haters classic is what I would say. So
haters classic.
It's a story about how it doesn't matter how much of a genius you are. If someone commits their life to hating on your work, they will succeed. So some motivation for everybody on a Monday.
All right. Okay. The haters classic. It's like the haters ball. Remember the haters ball?
So it's like you and Denver fans.
A little bit. The haters ball is better though. Buck Nasty, Silky Johnston. When they're sitting around, I can't even repeat.
Yes, you can.
They're sitting around the portraits of the. What'd they say about Puffy at the time? They said he's got dolphin teeth.
Yes, he did. Dave Chappelle is fantastic.
Oh yeah, there's some. Let's say lines Charlie I won't Murphy. Say out of fear of I don't have the carte blanche that Dave Chappelle does.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think we might get in trouble with some of those. All right, let me ask you a couple of questions off of the conversation.
It's funny you mentioned my coat. It's made out of your mother's pubic hair. That's one of the. Sorry, I had to get one of them.
All right,
that big gray fur coat. Oh my, that kills me every time.
That's funny. The Brandon Ingram piece, when you said that, Derek, it made me think about the financial piece, of course, is different because he's younger and you have to re-sign him and bring in Zach LaVine and you would have to take on his contract. What are some of the player issues that you had with Zach LaVine and you may have with Brandon Ingram that are similar? But, of course, with the younger and the contract situation, you would just simply be willing to accept it for what it is.
Yeah. Well, they certainly have similar deficiencies, like in terms of, especially defensively. Like Brandon Ingram off ball, I think can be pretty bad defensively, and he would probably frustrate me. Part of it is a contract. Like he's at $36 million for next year. That's lower. I think there's some hope that you can get him on a sub, less than what Zach LaVine will make over the next couple of years. So because he's not locked into that big dollar contract for after this one, there's some hope that you might be able to get him, like I said, cheaper. And I've seen Brandon Ingram, when he's in a catch and shoot spot, I think I've seen him make them at a pretty good clip. So I think maybe you can get him to change his roles. And if he's not on ball quite as much and he's not settling for those mid-range, he's more comfortable launching threes. Maybe you can get that three-point volume back up to where it was a couple of years ago. I think moving him off ball some will help with that. But it's not like they're both imperfect. It's not a slam dunk. When you start getting down to like option 4 or option 5 or option 6 or wherever these people would be, it's living with the flaws that you're willing to live with. And part of it just seems like Zach LaVine's, they're both have scary injury histories. It just seems like Zach LaVine has a little more of a chance of catastrophic injuries in the future, and that factors into it too. But they're both very imperfect for sure. And that's sort of why I brought it up.
I do think the LaVine three-point shooting volume is a pretty significant edge sure. If you're talking about how do they translate to a Sixers-specific scenario.
I think what I was trying to say is if you move Brandon off ball, that gap might close a little bit.
Well, look, he has the mechanical skill that if he is willing to take those shots and you drill into his head, like, look,
Ingram.
Offense is running. Yes, the offense is running through Joel at the nail. He's going to get doubles. You will get repeated open three opportunities. If you can take advantage of them, there's a lot of money on the table for you to pick up, right? Because when the volume has been there, we talked about it when we did the whole Brandon Ingram show, when he was shooting, 6+ threes a game or in the neighborhood of 6 threes a game, hitting them at a pretty good clip. I believe it was in the high 30s, if I remember correctly. The difference with LaVine is you don't have to correct him in terms of the willingness to shoot. And that also is reflected in you don't have to change his shot profile as much, right? Like Ingram, you have to get away from those mid-range spots that Joel likes to operate in. And I think that might be a tougher task than, like, if you were to say LaVine wants the ball too much in his hands, and with the three guys they have, you don't want him dominating touches as much as he might want. But I don't think it's like a drastic, dire problem if he does, because he's still helping one of the main problems that you've had around Joel Embiid, which is just getting enough threes up, like putting the shots up that need to go up. Will he get to the mid-range and shoot some bad shots from time to time? Of course. I'm not sitting here saying LaVine is a perfect player, but they're in, I'd say, roughly the same neighborhood as playmakers. Ingram actually might be slightly better at this point, but that's only because I think he's taller.
Yeah.
And some of that is just slightly taller. He's 6'8", and LaVine's 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in that neighborhood. I think he's slightly better as a playmaker, but I don't necessarily care about that difference all that much, because if they're in that off ball, playing off of Joel and Tyrese type of role, I care about, are you a play finisher? And I think on top of the volume and 3-point shooting, I think LaVine, with his athleticism, assuming he still has some after all these injuries, as a cutter and as a finisher at the rim, I think he can do some stuff that Ingram has struggled with at times.
Yeah, Ingram shot close to 4 threes a game, 35%. LaVine, 35%, but he did take close to 7. And I know you guys are big on the volume that is taken. And if you're behind the 3-point line, that ball swings to you from Maxey or Embiid off of that double. Which one would you prefer to have there? And we've seen where Zach LaVine can go off from behind the 3-point line if he has one of those types of games.
Yeah, no, I trust Zach LaVine as a high volume 3-point shooter more, for sure. There's no doubt about that.
All right, and looking at the other side of it, as we talk about the trading for LaVine and getting him, Caruso maybe in the mix as well, I figured, since we're in, as you said, we're going down the list, and now we're in H and G and all these, going that far down as far as making that move, whether it's free agency or a trade. We've talked about both of the Bulls players, not Caruso, but LaVine and DeRozan, the difference in signing DeRozan as a free agent versus trading for Zach LaVine. If you're already that far down the list and you are doing something, would you look at that one as another option?
I would look at DeRozan, but basically only in that scenario we're talking about, that's the balloon payments type of deal.
2 years, big number.
Yeah, give him a big chunk of the cap, and it's sort of just a placeholder. Now, I don't like DeRozan as much as LaVine for this team, because unlike with LaVine, that shot profile, or even with Ingram, that shot profile is not changing for DeMar DeRozan.
No.
Like, he is who he is at this point of his career. And I think on teams that need, like the Sixers do need secondary creation. They do need guys who can get to their spots. I've talked about someone who can, when the chips are down in the playoffs, you need to just get into the mid-range, do that kind of stuff. He is valuable in that way. He's become a much better playmaker over the course of his career. I think once he went to San Antonio he's been if not a lead playmaker guy, then at least in that strong secondary playmaker category. The problem is he wants to operate everywhere Joel does. Like, there's just really no way to get around that fact other than asking Joel to change. And you don't want to ask the better player to change for the worst player. And that's no disrespect to DeMar DeRozan, who's had a long and productive career.
Like when Devon joins a show, we don't ask him to change. Kyle and I adapt.
Right. Yeah. One guy's comfortable with the microphone in front of him. The other two are Derek and I.
Lies.
So the point is, like, I'm not opposed to DeRozan as a general concept. I just think he's still good enough that he's going to command a decent salary number.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that you can then build the team out around them. I think it would be easier, even with the long-term risks and concerns, to build a coherent contending level team by just gambling on LaVine versus paying DeRozan. What do you think he'll get? If you had to give him a balloon payment,
Because
what does
he's
that
been
look like?
getting
Like
some-
30 a year?
He's been still getting
I was
some
thinking
really
250,
good
but
ones.
yeah.
Yeah, so 25 to 30. Then you're probably getting one other decent money guy, and not much changes.
Is that the 15 million still in that range somewhere around there for that second
No,
one?
you'd
Or-
have more than that. If
You
only
could get
give
like
him-
two
Well, I mean, for the
25
one player
guys.
there, and then you can still go into that 8 and that 6 that you were talking about before with some of the mid levels. And
let's trying to do this on top of my head. They had what, $64 million if that includes, or that does not include Paul Reed. So take $8 million off for Paul Reed, 56, and then you have 25 for DeRozan. You still have a good $30 million you could play with.
that's still good money.
Yeah,
But for
I
who?
do. Yeah, I do think if you have the 30, the next good player is also getting 20 to 25.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we have, let's say, $8 million.
Left, right. Yeah. I
So
got you.
functionally, I don't think it's that much different. And I think LaVine, on top of being the more dynamic player, it's just a lot of other things can fall into place a little bit easier. But it's not a crazy question. If DeMar, for whatever reason, said, hey, I'll take a team-friendly-ish deal to come and have a better chance to win, then I think it becomes a real conversation. But from what I know and what is out there, I don't think he's at the point yet where he's saying, this is the last ride. Give me the room exception, and I'm going to be your super sub. And I don't think he should, frankly. I think he's got enough left in the tank to still be a difference maker for somebody.
This is fun with this conversation of throw the DeRozan part in there. Harrison G says, DeRozan, we need to draw the line somewhere, guys. Yuck. Lost Sleep TV, DeRozan, say goodbye to spacing. LOL.
And then our guy Phil W is riding hard
Volume scorer. Yep.
for DeRozan.
He'll be deadly. And that pick and roll with Embiid would be nice. So that's where it is. And then Spo Babby says DeRozan on a good deal will be pretty solid. He's only a year or two out from brief MVP conversation. Where did he finish, Derek, in that conversation? Probably like top 5, a couple of years ago where he was still in that mix. Yep. And so it's still there where at least the interest for some fitting in with this team would be there.
No, I forget who brought it up in the chat, but spacing matters, especially spacing around your best player, especially when you're talking about the floor spots of your best player.
That was Lost Sleep TV.
Yeah. It would, to Kyle's point, I respect the progress DeRozan has made as a playmaker. It just would not be a good fit. And also he's, there's going to be a cliff coming at some point. You don't know when it's going to be, and he's tall and he gets to his spot. So maybe that cliff isn't going to come as drastically as you would expect. But it's going to come eventually. And I think it's going to come probably on the defensive side of the floor first. Just a really bad fit. It's just a really bad fit.
He's had a really fascinating career where he was like the lightning rod for all the eye test versus analytics debates, and that everybody got kind of entrenched on their two sides. And then over time, as people came to appreciate just how good he was base level, but also the improvements that we're talking about that he's made, he's become appreciated by, I would say, just about everyone.
Yeah.
And all those conversations just got put to bed. So it's rare that a guy is as divisive as he was when he was, mid to late 20s. And now he's just kind of in his hero arc in the back end of his career, which is nice for him. Because everything I've heard about DeMar is that he's also a good dude on top of that.
Yeah.
So
just real fast, just wanted to run it. His contract that he signed max with the Raptors was 5 years, $139, and that was in 2016 through 2020. For the Bulls in 21-23 with the sign and trade, when he left, what was that, San Antonio? 3 years, 81. So 26, 27, and 28, pretty much on those years. So when you talk about that balloon payment, is he going to get 81 again? Could he get 3 years for 3
and
for
he's
60?
What, 34, 35?
And he is 34, and he'll be 35 in August. So to the point of 2 years 50,
Right.
3 years 60, 2 for 60, somewhere around there. Does he get that again at this age.
He could. I mean, he's had some pretty good seasons. He has not had the kind of decline I think most people expected.
And also, like, if Detroit just said, now I feel like DeMar doesn't want to go to a place like that. But let's just say Detroit is like, we need a professional veteran scorer, guy who can play.
All right, you're stepping into Tobias'
They could
territory,
give him a boatload of money, and it would make sense to, just give them a higher floor. Also gives takes burden off of Cade Cunningham's shoulders, all that. Like that wouldn't be crazy to me. So the reason I'm throwing out like, oh, he's going to get a big number that I'm wary of if I'm the Sixers is that he will have other options. Like I don't think you're going to steal him. I think to get him on one of those 2-year deals that we're talking about on a balloon number, that's going to be a pretty fucking big balloon is what it comes down to.
It might be more like 260. Right? Yeah.
Would not shock me even a little bit. And that's, it's credit to DeMar and how he's played over the last 3-4 years or so.
But stop stepping into Tobias' corner, though. That's his team, Detroit.
Well, here's the thing. Now that
Trajan Langdon is taking over.
Maybe we have to talk about Troy Weaver.
Got rid of your guy?
Pour one out for Weaves.
Pour one out for the homie, It's
yeah.
I'd have to get another beverage for that. Another friend of ours.
Who's that?
Steven.
Yeah.
Guys.
The beverage king here.
There are day-to-day annoyances. There are big annoyances. Like a guy running a proud Detroit Pistons team into the ground, all the grief that caused fans in the state of Michigan. When your team's being run into the ground by a horrible executive and media members are still writing glowing pieces about how good they are at team building, you can choose a better way, choose a chiller way. That's with our friends at Coors Light. You're getting an ice cold beer from Coors Light, because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans when they hit that perfect temperature. Hey, surprise, surprise. Guess what else I brought to the beach this weekend?
Wow, look at that. The beverage king.
I had a Coors Light bucket, a Coors Light cooler backpack. I came locked and loaded. But I did have to choose chill at one point. We established, we had a nice little base camp, some chairs, a little tent-ish kind of deal for some shade. Thought we had a decent amount of space. Thought we established, hey, these are the parameters around us. And then some people just decided we're going to plop down right next to you instead of taking the acres of beach alongside us.
You were the cool people. They wanted to be about the cool people.
It burns me up a little bit inside when that happens. But I looked at that label and I said, you know what I need to do today? Beautiful weather, not a cloud in the sky. I need to choose chill. And once I did that, got to turn to Coors Light, a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged, mountain cold refreshment beverage that has a smooth finish. So when you're worried about the people sitting too close to you on the beach, you can always step back, choose chill, and feel better. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light, get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Also, make sure Kyle and I have written a couple of diehard articles here.
Yeah, we've actually been doing our jobs lately.
I had a deep dive on the collective bargaining agreement and what picks the Sixers have to trade and what their salary cap situation, all of that stuff. You can go check that out. I'll probably 2 more later on this week. And we've been hanging out in the Discord, getting into some TV debates, a little soccer discussion, and all kinds of random
making
stuff.
Terrible Ted Lasso jokes.
Look, I only make terrible jokes. If you don't understand that from watching this show for the last 9 months, then that's your problem, not mine. But yeah, no, we have a lot going on there. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of writing here over the next month that will be diehard exclusive.
June, baby.
Prospect profiles,
draft time,
salary stuff.
Sixers have the 16th pick.
And some great merch that none of us are wearing today to display, but some great merch that you get a free T-shirt there if you sign up to become a diehard. So go to allphly.com and sign up. We'd love to have you.
I over-indexed on the hoodies. I have so many. I have a lot of PHLY locker merch.
I have 3 hoodies
for the winter and fall.
No T-shirts.
Yeah,
the T-shirt supply is low. I'll have to work on that.
And the dad hat. Have the dad hat. Yeah, so
we can't repeat this. John Dickerson just chimed in with a Dave Chappelle Player Haters Ball reference.
I've seen a few
will not be floated
of the Player Haters Ball comments in there. We do have some super chats as well that we want to run by a few of these here. Real time with Prince Blue to start off. I would trade the 16th pick for Kyle's Cavs right now. Well,
Thank you, real
There you
time.
go. You might be able to. Can you jump high? You got good
No,
calves? Can you jump
unfortunately,
high?
no.
So they're useless.
They are. They're just for show. They were useful when I was training to jump higher in my late teens, early 20s, so
Did you
that I
have the
could
strength
dunk.
training shoes?
The George Costanzas,
Yes.
or not this? No, who was
Jimmy.
the guy? The Jimmys.
Jimmy.
And he was supposed to be the product spokesman, and then he got injured on, what was that, like a wet floor or something?
Yes.
Yeah. None
In
of
the
that.
locker room.
Just,
Blamed it on
regular
Kramer.
trips to the gym so I could dunk in a game. Those days are long, long behind me.
I did
promise
have
you
those
that.
strength training shoes when in high school
Hey.
when I was playing.
There you go.
They didn't work. I could tap the backboard when I went to lay it up, but that was about it. Could never dunk. That went to other people in my family.
Yeah.
So this kid's, everybody else could do it. I couldn't. It's allowed.
It was a good feeling, but it's a fleeting feeling. Everyone's dunks end eventually.
And that's a great Seinfeld episode. Yes. Harrison G has a few. What do y'all think they should do with Paul Reed, Derek? What do you think? Paul Reed, you might as well update the contract situation.
Been some pushback. He has an $8 million, $8 million. I think it's $8 million.
Anyway, continue
somewhere
on.
in that range.
Continue on.
Fully non-guaranteed.
3 for 24, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. And I think it doesn't freaking matter. So we'll call it an $8 million non-guaranteed contract. It's not like an option.
Do you know there's a golfer named Paul Reed?
I did not.
I did not know that.
No, yeah, you're right. It's 7.7 for next year.
So they can waive him at any point. There's been a lot of talk of him being. Daryl mentioned it during the presser. There's been a lot of talk of them keeping him. Keith Pompey over the weekend was writing about the Sixers having a $6 million slot. Well, that $6 million slot would be a Paul George, keeping Paul Reed, and having $6 million. So the implication there would be that they would keep him. We'll see. Like, here's what I'll say. They can waive Paul Reed at the last second to reclaim that cap space. So it really comes down to, if you waive Paul Reed, you have about $14 to $15 million to spend on a free agent. That's critical because that is above a taxpayer or a non-taxpayer mid-level exception. So you have more spending power than pretty much any other comparable, playoff caliber team. That can be enticing to a free agent. Yeah. So I think if you get to a point, or even to somebody who wants to be traded maybe, or a team that wants to dump salary. So if you get to the point in July where you're like, well, there's somebody who wants to sign us, but we need that space, you can waive Paul Reed at that point. I would say the Sixers, publicly or privately, will probably be saying, no, Paul's a part of the future up until that point, because there's no reason to disillusion a young player who might be back next year. But to me, there's a better use of those resources than spending it on a backup center who can't play alongside Joel Embiid.
He'll be a Sixer until he isn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how long is that?
That's like,
don't know.
It's like saying you win the game by scoring more points.
Yes.
If it becomes convenient for them to cut him, they will. For now, there's no reason, as Derek said, to indicate that they're going to, or to even really entertain it, unless that becomes let's just say DeMar DeRozan. Hey, you can get him for $15 million after making your big move. Then it's like, okay, you weigh the option of signing a DeMar DeRozan. Maybe KCP, I think he's going to get way more money, but maybe KCP opts out and says, I just want the long term. I want the years, and you give him 4 for 60, whatever it is. And you say, well, we need that space. You move on from Paul Reed to get a guy who's more of a starting, closing type player for playoff situations. So it all depends on what shakes loose this summer.
Hypothetically, if let's say the number you just laid out there, you win by getting DeMar DeRozan $15 million annually, right?
Who is he coming with?
Exactly.
Is kind of
that's where I was going. Who is he coming with? What's the best pairing?
Because that's great value,
that big name
for him individually.
What's that best pairing with him of the big names that we've discussed?
It's probably Paul George still, just because Paul George is the most comfortable of any of the available high level guys in an off ball role. Just being I'm the spacer. I'm going to put up 8 or 9 threes. I'm fine being a catch and shoot, attack closeouts type player. Like, that's why he makes so much sense in general. It's just the ceiling that you're worried about, and his ability to elevate in the playoffs when they need him to. Like, Joel's having a bad game, Joel's hurt, whatever it is. You need somebody who can take control of the game on both ends. Like, that's where I'm worried about him. In terms of fit, he just makes so many other things easy. And we've talked about it with him. You do need probably some secondary creation if you sign him, because of the diminishment we've seen from him on that front. Whether you need to go in for DeRozan specifically, I don't know, but DeRozan would make up for some of that, certainly. I just don't think he's going to be gettable at that number.
No, but it was just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
What would the fifth person look like for you to round out that starting five if, it all worked out that way?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about him a lot, but like Caruso would be a great fit. And he fits into that number at $9 million. The Sixers could overpay for him in terms of trade. Who knows whether or not he'll ever be available because Chicago is not a rational franchise. But in terms of being someone who can be a lockdown defender, can make enough shots to keep a defense honest, can make good decisions with the ball as a more connected passer, I think he would be a great fit. But you would still be like, do you have enough in terms of like having a creator when Maxey's off the floor or when Embiid's off the floor? You'd probably be a little short there, but you'd have so many other ways that they can contribute on the floor that he's right at the top.
Yep.
Another super chat from Harrison G. Oh, it's directed towards me on this one. Overdue update on the tampering for your cousin. I don't have one.
Which means he failed.
The off season is just underway. It's June.
So does that mean you're committing to more attempts?
I'm committing to stay tuned. Stay tuned, Harrison G.
There will most likely be a full show on friend, family of the pod, Mikal Bridges.
Listen, man. He's enjoying the beach right now.
Good for him.
He is. He's enjoying
Happy
the
for
beach
him.
right now, just relaxing, recovering, getting his workout in soon as he takes some time off. I'm curious to see what they do with Brooklyn, but we'll talk
Is
about
that a
that.
South Jersey beach or a North Jersey beach?
Would
Trying
be
to read into it.
I think he
could
could probably go
better
to
than that.
a slightly. No, I was
Which
at the
would
Jersey
be pretty
Shore,
much
so no
every
disrespect
beach
to the
in the
Jersey
world
Shore,
would
but
be better. Yeah,
The house.
I wouldn't say that. I
house
think
is
we do
very
take for
nice.
granted the Jersey Shore a little bit as people
close
who are
and
close
convenient.
to it. Yeah,
The
But
house. The
there are a
house
lot
is very
better
nice.
beaches.
It's a very nice home. It's a very nice home, and it's on the beach. That's never a bad thing.
no.
Nah, but we'll see. We'll see where that one goes.
there will be some, maybe not tampering updates. There will be some Mikal Bridges discussion.
Yes, he's
certainly.
choosing chill, Sean Sharp. Yes, he's choosing chill. I'm not letting you down, Harrison. It's early June. The draft is later in the month. We'll see what happens. But that's also up to Sean Marks, too. So there you have that. There you go.
That's kind of the sticking point, right?
But we'll talk about that.
We will.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right.
What else you got over there?
A little bit of what's the hot button? With the finals on, a little bit of a hiatus right now before we get started there on Thursday, Dallas and Boston. We'll talk about that later in the week. The big story in basketball right now, can we all agree that it is whatever's going on with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA? Because
You're not getting me in trouble today.
that is a lot going on with that one. So it's just more, number one, how much WNBA have you watched since the season has gotten underway? And just the general thoughts on if you've paid attention a little bit of her play in general and what she has done from adjusting from the college game to the pro game.
I would say I haven't watched a ton more than I would normally. I've certainly talked about it more. Part of that is because a buddy of mine actually is covering Caitlin Clark's team this year.
Oh,
so that's
nice.
He's been, boots on the ground, talking quite a bit about that
Look
and
at
about
that.
the whole circus around it. Just for clarity, my friend is not the person who was making inappropriate comments and questions to Caitlin Clark ahead of time. My friend is an upstanding citizen and reporter. So just to clear that up, no Greg Doyle around here. But yeah, I mean, I certainly have been following the dialogue around it quite a bit. It's been almost impossible to ignore, especially over the last few days.
It's been crazy.
Really surged. I just find the whole thing kind of crazy because I can absolutely understand when a really hyped young player comes into the league. There's always that instinct from the people who are entrenched to be like, no, we're here already. I've made my name. Like, I'm an MVP. I'm an all-star. I'm whatever. Like, I've been representing for quite a bit, and she's got to prove it to us, not the other way around. On the other hand, it's like, it's not like she's some loser getting all this attention, right? Like, she literally broke the all-time NCAA scoring record. This is it's not someone with no talent just
Right,
being given
right.
the spotlight for no reason, right? Like she was a great player. So some of the backlash has just been crazy to me. But yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't been too deep in the weeds. Number one, I don't need to get myself in any trouble. Everyone's just yelling at each other over this, and I'm just, I'm gonna enjoy the beach. I'm gonna choose chill.
Yeah, choose chill.
I'm gonna leave this one to you guys.
I didn't think we would be yelling. We would just, look, I watched the WNBA and I watched them over the course of a while, last couple of years specifically. I like the Las Vegas Aces, like in Asia Wilson.
We talked about if we're out in Vegas this summer trying to get to an Aces
right, exactly.
game. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the date that we come back home is when they return from their road trip. So we might miss them. We might have to go to New York or something and watch the Liberty play the Aces or something like that. But, I mean, the dialogue, as you talk about it, is crazy because she comes in with this reputation. She's giving them a lot more eyeballs because of people following her from college as the all-time leading scorer, what she's done for the game of women's basketball. And you understand where some get a little frustrated because of the attention that she's getting. But I also understand on the other side of, well, she's good. She's going to get the attention. She didn't save it, but she certainly did bring a lot of people in. And it's the charter flight conversation of them finally getting the charter
That's what I'm saying.
flights.
I'm not trying to get in trouble. Some of these people are like, y'all be on Spirit Airlines if not for Caitlin Clark. It's like, all right, relax.
They just wouldn't have their own flight.
Yeah,
and that's all.
We can settle down.
But they've been fighting for that over the last couple of seasons. Has that maybe been pushed along a little quicker
Accelerated?
Because she's there?
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't know where those talks were before she got into the league. But these arenas are definitely selling out a lot because of the eyeballs that are now on it because of her. And it's funny because Angel Reese, they had a sellout in Chicago. I think it was one of their first games at home. And she tweeted out after the fact that, hey, sell out, and it's not because of one person kind of thing. But they have their rivalry coming from college. So that's good for basketball.
And with her, I get it. That's a personal, an individual.
Absolutely.
They played a bond, they played each other or whatever. Like, I get that.
Yeah, it's just
the random cheap shots and all that. It's
Kennedy
like, what
Carter,
are we doing here?
Yeah, the Kennedy Carter foul from this weekend was one that, hey, yes, they were talking trash down the other end of the floor. And when you come down the other end, you get in the heat of the moment as Tawitha Witherspoon, of course, great longtime WNBA player, Hall of Famer. She's her coach. And she's like, she was caught up in the heat of the moment. Yeah. And yes, she was. She also has a background of this stuff from when she was with the Atlanta Dream. So she has a history of being a little hot-headed at times, and she certainly she wasn't for it. And she was letting the rookie with the reputation also know, I'm not here for it. I'm going to lay you out. And the discussion and the back and forth, I saw Gene Ross said, yeah, Monica McNutt laid out Stephen A. on the show this morning, and it was hilarious. If you haven't seen it, you can go watch it yourself.
I missed that one. I haven't seen that yet.
It was funny. But hey, I like the fact that they're getting the conversation, Derek. Just the fact that people are talking about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can she handle it? I don't know. I don't know what it's like for her behind the scenes. But guess what? If we're talking about the $1,000 fine that Angel Reese got and Caitlin Clark and their salaries, well, she's got Gatorade. She's got a Nike deal. She's got State Farm. They're doing all right. And as far as Angel Reese, she's got a Reebok deal where she's the face of that with Allen Iverson and Shaq signing her to a deal. And she's got so many other things that they're bringing a lot of attention to the women's game of basketball.
Yeah, and that was something where, I think last year was the highest rated season for the WNBA in over a decade. I think it was up almost 25% over the previous year. So I think it was something that was sort of rising as it was. And now you have someone who generates so much attention. And hopefully that then just continues to lift it so that we can have these conversations about a cheap shot that 5 years ago, I'm not sure many people, ESPN, are having this conversation. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I know, I've watched a ton of women's basketball over the last couple of days. I haven't. I think that's Kyle's point. I think that's how you can get yourself in trouble. But just the fact that there are these conversations going on, I still think it's a good thing.
And Martian Lynch says, Diana Taurasi is a massive hater. Retire already, LOL. She's one of the greats of the game. But that's part of her personality for her game, too. And this goes back to the Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi cast during the Final Four, where she was giving it to Caitlin Clark. And a lot of people were like, man, you're hating already. And she hasn't even stepped to the game. But this is part of the conversation. For what Diana Taurasi did for the women's game of basketball, is she telling the truth? Yes. but is she also a little like, wait a minute, where was this for us too? We laid the groundwork for this for her to play this game. She's not wrong there either because they have. But Diana Taurasi is looked at as one of the all-time greats. So I don't know where that part comes from because people give her credit for what she has done for the game of basketball.
I think you see the same dynamic in the NBA, right? There are the guys who are like, well, back in my day and all this. And then you have the Allen Iversons who culturally was just absolute, on top of being a great basketball player, is just a tremendous cultural force that changed, like league rules were changed because of him. The partnerships that players had away from the game, they all changed, and there's plenty of pushback from David Stern among other people at the time. And Iverson is someone who, frankly, I think could be a super bitter person today because of how difficult it was for him at the time relative to now all these guys are taking advantage of, what happened with him. He went the other way and he's like, I took a beating and now it has allowed all these young guys to come in and, be themselves in whatever way is authentic to them. And on top of that, if you're just talking about the sports part of it, he's the guy who's like, man, Steph Curry's the fucking GOAT. Like, I love LeBron. I love this guy. And like, is just always giving these guys their props, their just due. And I love that about him. So look, it's going to be the same thing in the WNBA. Some of these women will say, look, I love Caitlin's game. She's great. She's great for the sport. Other women are going to be like, I was here and we've been doing this for certain, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to have both. I think the negative side has gone just a little too far out the gate. So we'll see over time as she establishes herself and presumably starts winning more games as her team gets better. I think some of that will kind of get pushed to the side.
Friend to the show, Winona says, as if people don't know, we know that Winona played college basketball.
She was a hooper.
When I played, Carter would have lost that ponytail. See, there you go. Right? But that's basketball.
Player haters ball.
You get
laid out at the table.
Nick Van Exel tweeted out over the weekend, man, where was this when Player X and all these guys were laying us out when we won? Well, I mean, that was the game. That's how it goes. Michael Jordan had to deal with it. Nick Van Exel had to deal with it. Some of these other young players, Angel Reese, someone mentioned that she got clotheslined a couple of weeks ago. And where was this type of coverage? Well, Angel Reese just came out and said right away, I got to take my lumps. Caitlin Clark hasn't said anything that would also garner any bad press about it as if she's whining or crying about it.
Yeah.
Now, she whines on the floor. That is one thing she can stop. She's not Luka level, but she does complain about not getting certain calls and all. But, man, when Kennedy Carter laid her out after that made basket, it was crazy. Yeah, that was something. And, hey, man, but they're talking about it, and that's a good thing for the game. I would go see it, especially if they had a Philly basketball team.
Aces, can you reschedule that?
Move
July
it to Wednesday,
stretch, please,
so we can go to the game while we're out in Vegas. But,
and then I will be there no matter what, because we will be in Vegas for longer than I'm normally in Vegas, and I will anything that restores normalcy for me.
Yeah,
no flashing lights, just like I'm in a gym watching basketball. I will greatly appreciate if you could just do that for us.
We're gonna have a good time out there.
We are,
yeah, and Philadelphia, Josh Harris. Can you get the women's basketball team here already? Thank you. And
then nice. I won't have to care at all about baseball in the summertime. It'll be perfect.
Perfect. It's time for a roll call here on this Monday.
Vince, if you have tickets to give away next time, because Kyle and I went to a game, a pretty big game, give it to someone else. Give it to someone who cares.
It's for a fact. Like I enjoy baseball for what it is. It's just
going with the Vaughn next year is what I'm saying. Like next playoff run, I'm going with the Vaughn.
Well, you got to show up to work to get the tickets.
I'll be here that time. I'll be here that time.
The truth comes out.
All right.
Yeah, roll call. It's time for a roll.
All right, everybody. Thank you as always for being here. I want to shout out my people, including but not limited to
who?
Spo Babby,
what up?
Eugene G. Ross.
What up, Gene?
My girl Winona, the #1 hooper, I think.
Knocking ponytails off.
Come on. Winona. Show them and then go choose chill or maybe drink an Olipop. Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Better. Whatever you want to do. Money Marr, the biggest hater in the chat, would be welcome at the Player Haters Ball. Brian Knight, Bootzilla.
Boots.
Michael Belfatti,
What up,
number
Mike?
one Portuguese resident
We'll
super
be
fan
there.
of PHLY Sixers. We're
We'll be
coming
there,
to Porto.
Michael.
I sure hope. Lost Sleep TV, Dan McGlade. Who else we got? Martian Lynch,
What
as
up, Martian?
always. SB Cole, Phi Chi. Who else we got here? Aaron, as
What up,
always.
Aaron?
My guy, Will. Thank you, Will, for coming through today. Smy Guy. Hello to Smy Guy. Harrison G came through with a couple super chats.
Thank you, Harrison G.
Thank you to Real Time for not only offering a super chat, but admiring my calves in the middle of a show. Your support is
A lot
greatly
of comments
appreciated.
on Kyle's calves in the chat.
And some Derek's
There were
calves
some
comments
debates,
as
Some
well. You know,
Olympic
it's-
style testing I
Devon's
saw
wearing
in there.
pants, so you can't.
Well,
and
I
he's
have-
behind the desk.
My
so
bad
it's-
calf anyway. This one is gone because of 2 surgeries on this leg, so it's just gone.
You know what they say about excuses? Everyone's got them.
Well, I could show everybody my calf.
Jeffrey Stewart, Sean Sharp, Chris, just Chris.
What up, Chris?
Hello to Chris, whatever Chris you are out there. John Dickerson.
What up, Johnny?
I think
What's
that's
happening?
probably
That's
Rupert Pupkin.
Rupert Pupkin.
That's probably about good for today. Oh, as always, I'm my own yams now. No longer Daryl Morey's yams. Thank God for that day. I still
Good
ended up
work
saying
by
it.
you.
Anyway, good job by you.
What
Thanks
up,
everyone for being
yams?
here. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live.
Oh, I need a
And
better
if you
one.
hit
We
the
need a better
thumbs
one.
up button,
There you go. Better one.
Derek's calves will grow 2 sizes by tomorrow's show. Thank you for being here. We'll be back again tomorrow at 2:30.
Get
Be
those
there, be
Olympic
square.
testing on the calves. Yes.
Goodbye,
Yes.
everybody.
Thank you, Bree.
Thank you, Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.